When you look at the world and what's happening with the fast pace of change, with how companies are adapting, with how colleges are adapting, it begs the question, are our students real world ready?
Welcome to the show called Let's Talk Homeschool, brought to you by Apologia Educational Ministries. This is the show where we talk about everything homeschooling, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. We want to affirm and encourage you in the decision to homeschool, challenge and inspire you to take it to new heights, and celebrate everything you get to experience along the way in this adventure of a lifetime. Today I'm your host, Davis Carman, and we have a guest, Hannah Grady Williams. But I want to remind you, our listening audience, that you can now watch us on YouTube, or you can keep listening on your favorite podcast app. Your call. Today's show is titled D-Skills or D-Skills. We're going to find out the right way to pronounce this. Okay, Hannah, let's talk homeschool.
This is going to be such a blast, Davis. Can't wait.
It is. So, folks, I'm going to read a couple things about Hannah's background and bio. So, she began an entrepreneurial journey in a blue pickup truck. Okay, we got your attention right now? This is interesting already. And after a jolting introduction to business, she enrolled in college at age 14, graduated with a degree in international business at age 18 from Liberty University, and now at age 25, she is the founder of D-Skills, a virtual hub that prepares students for careers in the future where AI powers the world. Chris Lockheed calls Hannah one of the most important voices in education today, and one administrator even called her offensive to some. But Hannah was homeschooled, K through 12. So Hannah, I can't wait to have a conversation with you today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Davis. I can't believe this sort of journey is coming full circle, and I get to be involved with more amazing homeschooling families like you. It's just awesome to come back full circle, back to my K through 12 journey.
So I'm sure we got people's attention already with just the part of the topic being AI, artificial intelligence. So let's start there because we got a lot to cover. What are some of the things changing about careers, especially because of AI?
Gosh, Davis, there's so much to unpack here. And I'll start this by saying there are so many different sort of hot takes around AI right now. And I'm sure many of our listeners, there's going to be all sorts of people on the spectrum. It could be people who are really afraid of AI, and that's been what they're hearing from the media or from Terminator or whatever your experience is with AI. And then there's people really embracing AI and doing amazing things with it, like students I'm watching who are writing books, illustrated books in a day. Students and parents together writing music albums and releasing them on Spotify in a day. They've sort of tasted all this excitement around AI. So all of this to say, whatever your position is on AI, we're going to get into this and talk about what I think is more critical than even the AI itself. And it's asking the question, how do our skills and mindsets need to change? We call them D-Skills, the D-Skills and mindsets that we teach our kids, that our kids learn to prepare for their futures. How do these need to change now that AI is here? Sometimes when people hear me talk about this, they instantly jump to the AI skills and say, well, there's some approaches in education where people say, we just need AI teaching everything. I actually don't believe that. I think we're in a moment right now where the skills that we need to thrive and create fulfilling godly leaders in the future and help our kids to actually grow up as, fulfilled adults with amazing careers mean we have to tap into the skills that make us uniquely human. So I want to list a couple of these skills because I've kind of boiled it down with AI's help to 5 critical skills that I believe our students need to have in this future. I'll just list them quickly and then we can go back and unpack them as much as you want. Okay. The 5 skills that I believe are going to be most critical. And just a caveat, you'll notice here, many of these are not skills, they're mindsets. All right, number 1 is emotional intelligence and EQ. Number 2, critical out-of-the-box thinking, the ability to discern and problem solve what's right or wrong. Number 3, creativity and innovation. Number 4, the ability to adapt resiliently. And number 5 is AI literate or AI powered. So if you boil those 5 critical skills down, you see a trend here, which yes, we need to be AI savvy. We can get into this as I could probably get on a soapbox and we could talk for hours about this, Davis, but the whole idea of what's happening with AI tech and how fast it's evolving, it's now scoring in the top 10% on standardized exams when, just a year ago, it was in the bottom 10%. So we're quickly moving to an era where the skills and mindsets we need our kids equipped with, that we need humanity equipped with, are going to pivot to these things that keep us radically human and the ability to work alongside AI as almost our assistant for all sorts of careers. And I would say no career will be left untouched.
This is fascinating. I know I can't wait to really dive into some of this already because, for one, I personally really love all topics related to EQ or emotional intelligence. That's my interest level when it comes to personality studies, when it comes to human relationships, and I've read many of the books and looked at the model. So you've already piqued my interest with that skill or mindset alone. But then one of the things we did with our kids when they were homeschooled, they've all graduated now, is we had 3 goals. They weren't reading, writing, and arithmetic. They were relationships, reasoning, and resolve, which kind of tie into your things. I mean, emotional intelligence was one of the things I taught my kids because it's so important in relationships with God, with others, with yourself. But then reasoning kind of comes to the critical thinking piece, I suspect. But now I have to tell you, out of 7 kids, I have 2 artists. And so creativity is definitely a part of the discussions and skills that we've looked at and helped our kids hone. So let's come to these 5 things, but let's start with something probably a little lighter. What are some fun ways that parents can get their students to just kind of experiment or play around with this new tech in safe ways that may not be quite as intimidating as the actual technology itself?
Gosh, there's so many fun ways to play with this tech. And I'll preface this by saying, I talk with hundreds, if not thousands, of homeschooling families, of students from across the globe. And oftentimes I've run into this interesting discussion, which is so many people are scared of getting started using this tech. Now, I want to make sure I preface this whole conversation, and if I reinforce this, I might be a broken record by the end. But when we're talking about AI and the skills that are necessary for the future, I want to just remind us as we're having this conversation, this is nothing new. We've had tech advancements as almost as shocking as this every few decades, it seems like, right? With the internet, even though it's before my time because I'm 25, but with, the internet coming out, with cell phones, there's always going to be a technology that's disrupting the ways that we work, think, and play. I would say AI is one of the bigger ones, if not the biggest sort of transformation we've seen in decades, if not centuries. That said, as we talk about the fun ways to play with this tech, what I always like to share with especially parents who want to start integrating these fun ways of playing with the tech into their homeschooling, but may not know where to start. And here's the framework to sort of view all this through. Imagine that you had a personal assistant who is completely free, who is 24/7 available, who's never going to get sick, who is never going to have a bad mental health day. Imagine you have a personal assistant and start asking the question, what can you do in your day-to-day activities alongside AI that's going to help free up your time to do the things you really want to do, like be a great parent, like take your kids to more activities. So I'll give you a few examples of that. I've worked with homeschooling parents who are meal planning with AI. So there's this cool feature in ChatGPT where you can take a picture of what's in your fridge. You can ask AI to create dinner plan ideas based on what's in your fridge. Have you tried this yet? Because it's so cool.
I have not tried that yet.
It's awesome. And granted, I'll bounce between some of the things that are the paid version. So there's like a $20 a month version of ChatGPT, which is the main AI tool. And at this point, just if I'm being honest, if they charge $1,000 a month for this thing, I'd be paying for it because it is my personal assistant. But it's $20 a month, and I'll go through some things that are free, some things that are on this paid version. But this meal planning edition, imagine, every person's process for meal planning is different. But let's say it's, at the beginning of each week, you put together a grocery list. Maybe you have dietary restrictions in your family. So maybe you're vegetarian or you can't have milk. So if I'm a homeschooling parent, I might spend multiple hours a day or multiple hours a week doing this meal prepping plus the shopping time, right? So I'm the oldest of 7 kids. My mom still homeschools my younger siblings, and she spends so many hours a week meal planning. So I showed her this cool technique. You go into GPT, take pictures of what's in your fridge, then you ask GPT to generate a list of meal ideas for the week based on your dietary restrictions, also sort of adding on to what you already have in your fridge. Once it gives you a list, then there's even a way you can send that list directly to Instacart. It populates your grocery list for you. So that's just one fun example. So if I were listening to this and I'm like, wow, I want to sort of get into AI and play with it, I'd say, get your kids in the room with you and come up with, some crazy experimental ideas. Like, what if we tried to create a meal plan that was all international dishes, right? And then we use GPT to help us creatively brainstorm international dishes. You might find it gives you recipes you've never heard of before. It's really, really fun. Okay, that's one. I'll give you one more.
Okay.
What about planning curriculum for students who have different learning challenges or different learning styles? I don't know about in your family, but in mine, I have siblings who are dyslexic. I have siblings who are more creative, siblings with ADHD, and I've talked to many parents who've got kids with autism. Just all different spectrums of learning. And when I talk to these parents, they're spending so much time, maybe the whole summer, planning for that year of curriculum. Like, how do I tweak this curriculum to better suit my student? Well, we did an experiment. This was actually live on a podcast a few weeks ago. I had my screen shared. And in a matter of 10 minutes, we had replicated the work one parent teacher had put into planning an entire year's worth of curriculum in 10 minutes. And if you just let that...
That is almost hard to believe, but the practical use, obviously for a homeschool parent or for any educator, in terms of the time savings, is obviously huge.
Yes, and that mom looked, after we spent these 10 minutes, we took an example from the audience, spent these 10 minutes curating this. She looked at me and just said, wow, I have my summer back. I can go have fun with my kids,
Really?
Right? The things I want to do because I'm not consternating over this topic. And I'll say this to say, if you think about curriculum planning and you're using an AI assistant to help you, what it's able to do is, for example, let's say you're thinking through how to make math engaging for a 5th grade student with dyslexia. Well, maybe that student doesn't learn well by writing everything out. Maybe they want to do some sort of immersive experiential learning. So as a parent, if you're trying to Google, different ways to make learning experiential, that can take hours or days or weeks. But if you instead give the AI some criteria, so here's how your prompt might go. If you open up ChatGPT, which again, there's a free version, you can do this with the free version. It's just chat.openai.com is the window. So you just go into this version. You don't even have to sign in. You can literally go to a web browser and type in something like, you are a creative assistant with a specialty in curriculum design. My son is in 5th grade. He's dyslexic. He doesn't love, textbook style writing or working in that way. Please design 10 experiential project-based learning challenges to help him understand 5th grade math.
Okay.
You give it that challenge, suddenly it's going to give you 10 ideas for some really cool hands-on projects you could do with him to help him understand those concepts. So try it out. Give it a spin. It's so much fun. You might even get addicted. I certainly have.
So that's 2 good examples: food prep, curriculum prep. Hopefully that gives our audience even just an idea of some other things they might want to try and get answers to that are solving some problems that they would have. So you're one of 7. Rachel and I had 7 kids. They've all graduated from our homeschool. And interestingly, when our first graduated and we were starting to enter the question, what do we do after high school graduation? Rachel and I looked at each other and said, we were way outside the box homeschooling these 7 kids. So we might actually find ourselves outside of the box in post-high school. But both of us had college degrees, graduate degrees, and so college was a high value for us, but we were trying to break any paradigms we might need to. So the bottom line is 5 of our 7 kids have a college degree, but they all went very different routes than your typical 4-year route. There were gap years involved for 4 of our 7 kids. There were 6-month internships in between during college. There were online professional vocational schools that our kids went to. And then there were athletic scholarships for 2 of our kids. So wide variety. Our final 2 are finishing their sophomore and junior year in college. So they're on the path to graduating. But not only was the thinking outside the box part of it why they went different routes, but also there was a desire to do this debt-free, so none of them had to incur any debt. It was all scholarships, savings, working while they were doing it, and a variety of other ways to get the funds to make it happen. But we started this bio saying that you started college at age 14, graduated when you were 18, and then there's this stat that's in part of your work, and that is that 62% of Gen Z and their parents are looking for alternative solutions. Basically, families are asking, is college the best route? Is it a bad route? There's clearly some disruption happening in that whole higher education industry. So what are some things that you would recommend for families in today's world? Not just because of AI, but because there's changes in the winds in terms of what is the best way to prepare for life after high school and work after high school. So what are some of the things that you would recommend? Because you have this phrase called an impact portfolio. I'm very curious for our audience and for myself to find out what you mean by that versus the just go get a 4-year degree and that's what everybody's supposed to do. So the world is changing. You've already gone some different routes. What's some of your story, and what would you recommend to parents on this subject?
Well, first of all, I love what your kids did in all the different directions. I love that so much. It does speak to me and my story, and also watching my siblings and the different routes they're pursuing. But I'll take you back to answer this question. So this story is really critical to understanding why all of this discussion about college is happening. So I'm 25 now. When I graduated at 18, I was in the middle of my first internship at a company with around 2,500 employees. And I'll go back to that story in a second because it's really interesting, the paths that have opened and what I've learned. So in the past 8 or so years, I have had the privilege of working with about 3,000 leaders of all different companies in all different countries, states, etc. And one of the things that kept popping up, which is so interesting to me, is number one, they love homeschoolers. So a word of encouragement, they love homeschoolers.
So true.
Homeschoolers think creatively and out of the box, and we're a bit of rebels already, right? Our parents are rebels. The students are naturally rebels. And I think the future belongs to rebels, but we'll get to that. The second thing companies say to me is when I look at what's happening with AI, and we talked about those 5 critical skills, homeschoolers have those in a far higher amount than most students coming from other types of schooling, the grade grubbing, test focused sort of school environments. So we're already ahead, and I think now is a time to get even further ahead. So this all comes back to the question about college, because when a company now looks at a student, or even a college, they're starting to get a little more savvy. When they look at a student, they're asking a different question. They're no longer asking to the same extent. There's still some that are stuck, a little bit more in the past, but they're no longer just asking, does this student have a 4-year college degree or a graduate degree? They're instead asking, is this student real world ready? They're instead asking, is this student AI powered? And if you think about it, you and I, Davis, are business owners. We know this as a CEO or as a hiring manager. When you're looking to hire someone, you're looking for someone who is the most efficient, who thinks creatively and is going to bring the best ROI for your company, who's going to be a good team player. You're looking for those characteristics regardless of AI. But now that AI is here, wouldn't you rather, I tell stories of 2 Jackies, and I ask students, would you rather, and if they're putting on their CEO hat for a second, but I tell the story of 2 Jackies. So you have Jackie 1, who's doing everything she's supposed to do in high school, right? She's getting the best grades. She is shooting for the best colleges. She's not using AI because, that's not something you're supposed to really touch in school because that's cheating. You have Jackie 1, she does everything right. She graduates college. She is interviewing for her first job, let's say as a marketing professional. Then you have Jackie 2, and Jackie 2 broke all the rules. She was a bit of a rebel. She came to her parents who were scared of AI and said, I need to be learning this. So she started using AI and building her own assistants to help her better understand her reading, her math homework, her critical thinking, her projects. And now Jackie, who didn't do everything right, goes to interview for the same job. Which one's getting hired? And all the students know Jackie 2 is the one getting hired because if you have your CEO hat on for a second, that's the one that from a company's standpoint is more valuable. So now let's go back to your question about college. When you look at the world and what's happening with the fast pace of change, with how companies are adapting, with how colleges are adapting, it begs the question, are our students real world ready? And I would say, based on my own experience having been a college student and working again with thousands of companies, also with thousands of students, the question we should be asking as students and as parents of these kids is, how do I best prepare my kid for the real world? And more, that answer is becoming less and less college. Now, college can make sense for a lot of people. It sounds like you're, in your kids' examples, they're sort of doing it right, taking a gap year, test driving some things, getting a degree where it matters. But I would say for the majority of professionals, especially those of us like me who got a business degree or who are looking at a degree that's not, engineering or medicine, basically, any of those, I call them the degrees you go for when you don't really know what you want to study because you don't really know what the real world is like. I will just say there are better options to experience in high school and even a gap year before making that choice. So I'll give you a couple of those routes that I would personally, if I had kids, which hopefully I will in the next few years, but I feel like I already do because I've raised 5 of my siblings at least. And when I'm giving them advice, we'll talk through these pathways. So number 1, oh my gosh, trades are an amazing pathway right now. There's so many opportunities within the trades for, many companies offering college with the trade. They'll pay you to get your degree while you're working for them and earning money. Love it. That's awesome. Trades and apprenticeships are becoming such an amazing pathway. But for the students who don't love working with their hands, students like me, the students who might consider going to school for business, for marketing, for psychology, these sort of, the white collar degrees, I started DeSkills specifically for this reason, to help give kids a pathway to forging their own careers, to creating their own internships. So if we dive in that a little bit, going back to the concept of real world ready students, what those colleges and companies are looking for is evidence that students have self-created projects and opportunities that show and demonstrate that student's ability to think critically, to add value, right? If you put on that CEO hat for a second, if two employees come to you and one of them has a shiny graduate degree and the other one has evidence, what we call an impact portfolio, where they have shown how their skills are useful in the real world by helping small businesses and nonprofits solve impact gaps that they have. Well, suddenly that portfolio that is demonstrated looks a whole lot better than the student who's learned everything theoretically for, up to 20 years of their life. So that's what we're up to at DeSkills. And I'll pause here in just a second. I can get on a soapbox about this because I'm so passionate about it. But
this is great. Keep going.
We have a vision at DeSkills where 1 million high schoolers in the next few years are graduating with these impact portfolios. So to get a little bit more granular, we have students who are, 14 to 19 years old, who've never test driven a career. Maybe they don't even have enough confidence in themselves to try something. And they're hearing all these mixed messages. And we just come to them and say, what would it look like to test out that passion that you have, test out that interest? But here's the framework. Do it in the context of helping a real organization solve what we call an impact gap. So in our 10-week sprints, so it's just 10 weeks, students are going from maybe no experience working with AI or digital tools, maybe so little confidence in themselves that they are scared to put themselves out there at all. And in the span of 10 weeks, they're leaving with 3 things. One is 50 or more LinkedIn connections. So we actually have them starting their professional network, reaching out to global professionals who can follow their work and their journey and help them learn from each other. The second is they leave with a paid impact project. And to get a little more granular on an impact project, it's specifically a project that a student identifies a gap in their community. So for example, they could look at real estate agents and notice that there's no AI chatbot that potential customers could chat with in the right-hand corner of their website. So they're losing leads. So the student will build an AI chatbot. Maybe it's something as simple as their local bakery has music events coming up, but they don't have any flyers to market it or don't have a website. So the students will take their skills, their digital skills, and they'll build that and essentially give it to them. So students are finding these impact gaps. They're using AI and they're launching their own projects. And by the end of 10 weeks, over 40% of the kids in these sprints also land a paid engagement where they get paid for that web design or building these chatbots. And then the third thing they leave with is all the tools and mindsets to continue earning income, launching their own projects, making an impact on the real world. And something magical happens there because these kids who didn't have any confidence or whatever are suddenly saying things to me like, I didn't know I had this in me. Or now I've test driven my interest in design. So if I choose to go to college, I now know exactly what I want to study. And parents are coming to me and saying, what did you do with my kid? I don't recognize my kid, right? So that's the magic.
You actually took two words right out of my mouth. As you were talking about that at the end, I thought, wow, what a great test drive of this technology. And then I have to think when anybody goes through, especially a young person, goes through a process like that something magical happens. So I was literally thinking those exact same words as you said them before me. But I'm definitely tracking with you. The experience, the learning, the internship, the training that would provide, especially for a young student in high school who's doesn't really know what the future holds, but they grew up in a world with internet. You didn't even mention computers because that's old technology. But when I was your age, that was the new technology as things were coming along. I'll also include microwaves were brand new technology then too. But then I really started aging myself. One other interesting observation I was going to mention that I'm sure you probably run into, and you did touch on this at the beginning. Two of my 5 college graduates are actually in graduate school right now. And it's very interesting, some of the conversations I've had with them about AI, because they have some professors that, like you say, view it as cheating. You cannot use AI. We have programs to test if you used an AI-generated paper, for instance. Whereas they have other professors in the same college who are saying, you've got to use AI for this project, for this writing assignment, for whatever it is. And so you definitely have two sides of the coin here of people trying to figure out what is the place of it, what's the best use of it, what's my philosophy on AI and artificially intelligent use of personal assistant or getting projects done, getting something done. And to some degree, it reminds me of the calculator that was a similar issue when I was in high school. Is that cheating to use a calculator versus using an abacus or doing the programs or the math by hand? But I digress a little bit with that. The point is, this is new technology, which does make it a little scary. It's change in the winds. It's what does the future hold? But you brought up some great points. So as we begin to wrap this up, I want to come back to the 5 skills or mindsets that you mentioned. So you talked about emotional intelligence, critical thinking, creativity, the ability to adapt and be resilient, and then being AI literate. So what else would you like to tell our audience about these 5 mindsets as we begin to wrap up this conversation so that they got a good handle on why those skills and mindsets are important to this discussion that we're having?
I'll answer this by sharing a story. One of the amazing things that's happening with AI is that students or parents, really anybody who has never unlocked certain competencies in themselves now has the power to achieve way more than they thought they could. So this story illustrates this. We had a competition last summer where we wanted to see what students could do with AI. The challenge basically was you've got 30 days to build a business using ChatGPT. There's 2 young ladies, their names are Rory and Anna. They're 14 and 17 years old from 2 different states. One's in Kansas, one is in South Carolina. 2 different time zones, never met each other. They get on the first call, decide they're going to partner up for this intensive. They decided that they were going to build a Chrome extension that was a productivity timer for students. They wanted to name it Acadium. They decided we're not just going to stop there by coding a Chrome extension. We're also going to launch a social media account, build followers, have users by the time the competition ends, and launch a merch line to support this business. Brilliant, right? But it was 30 days. Now, not only did they do this, they had almost 500 subscribers by the time they ended the competition. They had multiple social media partnerships. It was awesome. And I was debriefing with them afterwards on what they had built. Rory, who did the majority of the coding on the extension, looked at me and said, I have never coded in my life. I've never
That's
coded.
Amazing.
I tried to learn coding, like Python for Dummies or whatever, starting from A to Z. They do, they start you at Hello World and then work you up from there. And she said, I could never get a product out. But when I started with my goal in mind, the impact I wanted to make, to have, and then I worked backwards from Z to A, I was able to produce a full product, because with AI, my creativity, my critical thinking of putting pieces together and letting ChatGPT do the coding for me, I was able to produce a fully functioning Chrome extension. Same story with Anna. She had never launched a social media account before. She had never created reels. She had never launched partnerships. But here she goes with AI as her assistant, who's teaching her how to do all of this. And suddenly they come out with an incredible small business in 30 days. We call this...
That is fantastic.
Yeah. And that's one story. There's, dozens of these. We call it impact first learning. So when we're thinking about these critical skills, if you start as a parent who's thinking about the assignments that you want to give your kids, and you're also bringing to mind the lens of preparing them for careers in an AI-powered future, think about impact first learning. It really embodies all of those 5 critical skills, because now the student, instead of starting at the beginning of a textbook and working through, or the beginning of a curriculum and working through, we're now in an age where you can give a student, or they could self-create a challenge, an impact. Then they can reach it by starting with the end goal in mind and working backwards. You think about that illustration of when you are doing a puzzle, you always start with the end product in mind. You want to know what that final image should look like. It's the same thing that's happening now as a result of AI. So you have people like me who's never coded before, and I've now built over 20 apps because of ChatGPT. I've now written multiple books because of ChatGPT, and when I have no time in my schedule. So the power of what we're able to do is just momentous right now in this moment. And we're at the moment right now with AI where, Bill Gates was back in your time, Davis, before I was born, where he was literally experimenting with the very beginnings of computer technology and what was possible for the future. And he had all the advantages of, having access to the college at night to go in and use their massive computer that no one else had access to, and coding all night. Every single human right now in this moment has that type of opportunity at their fingertips. And some of us are taking advantage of it, and some of us are fearful of it. But the ones who are taking advantage of it, the students who I work with at DeSkills, the students who are choosing to learn about this on their own, who are making real world impacts, leveraging AI to power them to fulfill their passions, those are our leaders in the future, 1000%.
That is great. This has been an amazing conversation. So before we start really wrapping it up here, where can people find you and DeSkills, and give us some websites or contact information so people can find more?
Yeah, best thing is just deskills.io. It's dskills.io. I've got it on my shirt right here if you're watching the video. Just D-skills. But we pronounce it DeSkills because it's like you're getting DeSkills, not DeDrills. You got to go for DeSkills before a degree. So just go to deskills.io. All the info's there. And in fact, one of the cool ways to get started with this tech, we've actually got these one-day free project sprints that anybody is welcome to join. One is coming up called Book Sprint, where in one day, you'll become a published author. You'll illustrate your own children's book and write it in one day with other students, families, parents from around the globe. And the winner of these competitions is going to get a publishing deal. It'll go on Amazon. We'll print copies of their book and send it back to them. So there's just so many opportunities like that. We've got other exciting sprints coming up. So come join us. It's so much fun to see what you're able to do in really short sprints with this tech.
Well, as always, it's hard to bring these great conversations to an end, but thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. We hope you'll join us again next time. This has been Let's Talk Homeschool, brought to you by Apologia Educational Ministries. I've been your host, Davis Carman, and our guest today has been Hannah Grady Williams with Deskills.io. Have a great day, and until next time, we are walking by faith and enjoying the homeschooling adventure of a lifetime.